go fishing. In Mongolia, with bears and wolves around, he needs to be extra cautious. Fortunately, the rivers here are rich in resources, and fishing in deep water areas almost guarantees a catch. He plans to start smoking fish once the cabin is complete. Nicole, contestant number 2, woke up today to expand her shelter. She discovered many wild onions near her camp. With careful observation, she found more edible wild plants, giving her an advantage in food sources. However, as the weather changed, Nicole, who suffers from multiple sclerosis, faced weakness and dizziness. She struggled back to camp, frightened by her vulnerability. Her condition requires long-term herbal treatment. Staying was unsafe. Even getting up to drink water was difficult for her. She tearfully chose to withdraw from the competition. The production team and rescue personnel quickly arrived, carried her on a stretcher to a vehicle, and rushed her to the nearest airport for medical treatment. It's hard to imagine the desperation of experiencing a sudden illness in the wilderness. Nicole, the second contestant, was eliminated. Contestant number 3, Jesse, celebrated today, marking 7 days of survival in the wilderness and setting a new personal record. Without his brother in this competition, he is determined to demonstrate his capabilities. However, remembering his brother's accidental fall last season, Jesse remained extra cautious while working. Today, while collecting garlic shoots outside his shelter, he spotted a snake directly in front of him. Fortunately, his cautiousness paid off as he was prepared while walking. Jesse swiftly used his bow and arrow from a close distance, killing the snake with one shot. He cut off the snake's head, and the rest of it became his lunch. Cleaning the snake was straightforward, simply gutting and skinning it. After a simple cooking process, Jesse marveled at the taste, noting it was almost like chicken, though the bones were plentiful and the meat sparse. Lucky Jesse struck again the next day, catching a grouse, which provided delicious fatty chicken meat. While cleaning it, he couldn't help but marvel, planning not to waste even the organs. Contestant number 1, Sam, not being near the sea, opted not to choose fishing line and hooks. Instead, he fashioned the fish hook out of wire and used unraveled rope as fishing line. Despite his efforts with this makeshift fishing gear, it was difficult to catch any fish. Sam spent a morning by the river without success, returning to camp to rely on his proven method, setting mouse traps. During the first season, Sam caught many mice, providing substantial protein despite their small size. The next day, eager to check the traps, he found no mice, but caught a small bird instead. Opting to stew the tiny bird, he found the soup more filling than roasting would have been. Even though the meat was hardly visible, the soup provided plenty of protein. By day 11, contestant number 9, Brooke, struggled with the cold weather. The smoke from the fireplace inside her shelter made it uncomfortable. Today, she planned to create a ventilation pipe using birch bark. After setting up the pipe, she added a support stand for the base. With the smoke vent and ground pipe in place, dark storm clouds approached, signaling an imminent storm. The contestants were understandably nervous as the storm brought lightning. None had completed building a cabin. They were still in makeshift shelters, raising concerns about their ability to withstand the rain. As the storm enveloped them, the fierce lightning and rain tested the quality of their shelters. On day 12, contestant number 6, Dave, after experiencing the extreme weather of the previous night, took measures to eliminate any trees that could threaten his camp. Strong winds might topple these trees at night, and if they fell on his camp, the consequences could be dire. Working as hard as him was a woodpecker nearby. Although Dave noticed the woodpecker, his target was not the bird, but a nearby tree. He drew his bow and arrow, successfully hitting a squirrel. In his view, squirrel meat was much more abundant than that of the woodpecker, and in the wild, he needed food with more fat. After processing the squirrel, he returned to camp to prepare a meal. He used the squirrel's organs to make soup, and chose to roast its skeleton and meat. 1 ingredient, 2 dishes. Contestant number 10, Randy, had also experienced the power of a heavy rainstorm and decided to move into his wooden cabin today. This sturdy cabin would provide him with enough security. Although many steps remained unfinished, he no longer wanted to face another storm like last night. Today, he needed to arrange the tarpaulin properly and fill the gaps in the cabin with branches, as well as complete the most challenging task, building the cabin's fireplace. To perfect the stove, Randy collected a lot of clay from the river. This not only protected the cabin, but also strengthened the fireplace. He filled the spaces between the stones and on their surfaces with clay, completing an attractive fireplace. Contestant number 8, Brit, recently caught a toad by the river. He thought of eating it like a bullfrog, but when he held it, the toad secreted an orange liquid. To avoid food poisoning, he chose not to eat it. Today, Brit planned to hunt by the river. To avoid entering the water, he used a long rope tied to the end of his bow and arrow. If he hit a duck or similar prey, he could simply pull the rope to retrieve it. As he was crouching by the river, he suddenly saw a deer crossing the river. Unfortunately, he missed his prey, but today's experience made him regret not being fully prepared. He had never expected to encounter large prey. If he had caught the deer, he would not have to worry about food for at least a month. It seems his usual hunting methods needed some adjustments. As he was packing up his gear, he noticed a squirrel near his shelter. However, Brit's aim was still poor. He missed the target even at close range. This reflected the richness of his geographical location. Contestant number 5, Larry, unusually decided to try fishing today. Throughout this season, his food had mostly been small animals like mice and squirrels. But with no catches in recent days, he had to try fishing. Luckily for beginner Larry, he caught a fish as thick as his arm, which made him very happy. He should try fishing more often. Such a big fish could provide as much protein as several mice. On day 20, contestant number 8, Brit, caught a lot of grasshoppers. In the morning, he tried fishing, and it turned out that grasshoppers were very effective as bait in the wild. Brit used up all his grasshoppers in 2 hours, catching a total of 9 cold-water carnivorous fish. The irresistible lure of grasshoppers made this a bountiful catch, boosting his confidence in the competition. Contestant number 9, Brooke, tried fishing today using homemade lures and the lure fishing technique. However, the fish were not interested. It seems genuine bait works better than artificial ones. During this season in Mongolia, there are many grasshoppers, but Brooke did not consider using live bait. Contestant number 4, Jesse, hasn't eaten solid food in 5 days. He has been eating a novel food source, birch tree bark. By scraping off the outer aged layers and using the fresh inner bark, he fills his stomach, though it's not very nutritious. Since discovering this easy-to-obtain food, Jesse has rarely gone hunting. He even dries the bark to eat as a snack. Birch bark provides only carbohydrates and amino acids, not proteins or fats. Long-term consumption can lead to bloating and severe constipation because it contains cellulose, which humans cannot digest. Knowing all this, Jesse still continued with the bark. He picked up a pebble from the river, crushed the bark into powder, hoping it would aid digestion. However, his body reached a breaking point. Jesse began to experience excruciating abdominal pain, unable to defecate for 4 days, ultimately leading him to call for help. After 24 days in the wilderness, his inactivity led to his elimination. If he had continued to hunt or fish daily, perhaps the outcome would have been different. Jesse was regrettably eliminated. Contestant number 5, Larry, has recently mastered fishing, catching fish almost daily. To ensure a balanced diet, he gathers dandelions near his campsite to eat with the fish. Today he was lucky again and caught a salmon. However, while cooking, Larry suddenly felt very dizzy, as if hit by a wild beast, possibly due to dehydration. He had been eating dandelions with fish for several days, which aid metabolism and increase the frequency of his restroom visits, but he did not drink enough water. Contestant number 1, Sam, noticed today that the trees around his shelter are changing. The leaves and grass are turning yellow, signaling the end of summer and the arrival of autumn. This prompts Sam to hurry to his cabin as the weather is getting colder. In Mongolia's winter, temperatures can drop to -40°C, a harsh condition for anyone outdoors. Sam's cabin is made of resin and appears fragile at first glance. He needs to ensure the branches are firmly tied. Contestant number 6, Dave, woke up happy today because with the arrival of autumn, elks are more active in searching for food. Dave plans to hunt in the canyon, determined not to repeat his unsuccessful experience in Patagonia, where he only set traps. Today, he took a proactive approach and shot his first grouse with a bow and arrow. However, the grouse was not completely dead, which overwhelmed Dave with sympathy. Despite his hunger and need for food, the cries of the animals he hunted made him deeply uncomfortable. On day 24, contestant number 5, Larry, found a mouse in his shelter upon waking. He planned to empty the cabin to find the mouse nest. but realized halfway through that this would consume a lot of energy. Not worth the calories, even if he caught and ate the mouse. At night, the noise made by the mouse kept him awake. His frustration grew as he was unable to catch or drive away the mouse, leading him to light a fire outside the shelter. In the morning, he sprayed bear repellent inside the shelter, hoping the pungent smell would deter the mouse. Contestant number 8, Britt, had another successful fishing day. His fishing skills are now expert, with his record being 9 fish in 2 hours, and today he caught 5 in 1 hour. The only limit to his catch is the number of grasshoppers he has for bait. Britt plans to try making smoked fish today, a process that involves drying out the fish meat by hanging it above the tent and using the dense smoke from the fire to remove moisture. Eating fish long-term does not provide the energy he needs, as he needs more fat. Despite being full from fish, Britt feels his strength waning and sets traps by the river using leftover fish heads as bait, hoping to catch something other than fish. Contestant number 10, Randy, is also making smoked fish today. His method is simple. He has a fireplace and just needs to place the fish at the highest point and cover the chimney. This way, when he lights a fire, the smoke can only escape through the gaps where the fish is located, effectively making smoked fish automatically. He doesn't have to worry about the dense smoke causing trouble inside the house. Today, Randy wants to change his diet and has taken his hunting bow to look for grouse. As a survival instructor, he knows where grouse like to roam in the wild. By slowing down and using his bow and arrow, he can switch today's meal to succulent chicken. So far, Randy's days have been the most relaxed and comfortable with a solid shelter and plenty of food. It seems inevitable that he will be in the competition for the championship. Contestant number 9, Brooke, is complaining about the green rain tarp she brought this time. Last season, the rain tarp was white. Although the green one can calm the mind, it also brings feelings of sadness and coldness. Being in a green environment for a long time can affect mental health. Brooke plans to take a long trip. She wants to climb the nearby hill to appreciate the beauty of the place. If she can find some berries along the way, it would be perfect. However, as she was halfway up the hill, strong winds began to blow. She had to quicken her pace and eventually reached the summit where she overlooked her beautiful shelter. But just then, dark clouds arrived with a sudden downpour over her head. To avoid being trapped on the mountain, Brooke hurried down and returned to the sad green shelter. In this shelter, thoughts easily arise, and the inner self tries to convince her to leave this dreadful place, giving many reasons to leave. Contestant number 6, Dave, is sorting out his recent emotional fluctuations in his tent tonight. He knows he has a problem with his mindset. The constant killing has made him want to retire, but for the sake of the competition and food, he must continue to hunt. Just then, he saw a mouse. He loudly warned the mouse to go away, but it seemed unafraid and directly walked into Dave's trap. Overnight, one mouse after another stubbornly headed to his trap. In the morning, Dave was very happy. The mice came to him on their own. He didn't have to kill them and still got 3 mice for breakfast. On day 28, the production team's car entered the competition site, indicating that a contestant had chosen to quit. The last to be mentioned was contestant number 9, Brooke. She had grown tired of being alone. Coupled with that green shelter and rain tarp, she was constantly self-reflecting. She missed her family and wanted to give up everything here to return to her loved ones. This competition made it clear that in Season 4, she managed to last 49 days mostly due to her husband's company and care. If it were just her alone, she might have ended much earlier. Contestant number 9, Brooke, was eliminated. Day 29 arrives with only 5 contestants left. This morning, Dave caught his 7th grouse since the start of the competition. The land is abundant with diverse game, prompting him to craft a new weapon today, an atlatl. This throwing weapon features a handle with 2 finger holes for grip. It launches projectiles like arrows using branches at the tip, which can pierce prey with force. This afternoon, Dave will continue hunting. He discovered a path ideal for ambush, formed by elk and other wildlife. Dave plans to construct a hunting stand between 2 trees, a physically demanding and risky task. However, as an outdoor instructor, Dave can execute it flawlessly. Catching an elk here would make all his effort worthwhile. Contestant number 10, Randy, went to the river to restock today. His first batch of smoked fish is ready. To avoid hunger in the winter, he needs to prepare more food. Like all animals in this season, the river fish are plentiful, allowing Randy to catch one after another. totaling 11 fish today. Contestant number 1, Sam, started his day checking his fish traps, including a funnel-style fish trap. Upon inspection, he found it filled, but was disgusted to find his right ear covered in leeches, blood-sucking creatures. Reluctantly, Sam collected the leeches and took them back to his shelter. Desiring fish, he decided to make a fishing net, though he questioned its effectiveness at this late time before winter. After setting up his net, Sam returned to camp, took out the leeches, and decided to eat the slimy creatures. He regretted not bringing fishing line and hooks, having misunderstood Mongolia as just desert grasslands. Contestant number 5, Larry, started his day by checking his traps, catching a mouse. The mouse trap proves to be a stable food source at this stage of the competition. To reduce the chance of catching unwanted fish, Larry crafted a net, spending the morning on this meticulous task, which helped temper his temperamental nature. In the afternoon, he went fishing by the river, demonstrating the effectiveness of his homemade net. Crafting his own tools in the wild boosts his confidence immensely. Contestant number 8, Britt, had a frustrating day as his usual fishing spot yielded no fish at all. Previously, he could catch over 10 fish in 2 hours here. It seems the colder weather has driven the fish to deeper waters. Without enough food for winter, Britt faces difficulties. His shore traps are empty, and his hunting skills are weak, leaving him uncertain of his next steps, especially since 99% of his diet is fish. On day 32, with only 5 contestants remaining, Britt found a small rodent in his shelter at night. He quickly used a stick to kill it, securing his evening snack. Roasting the rodent thoroughly not only kills any viruses, but also allows him to crush the bones for more protein. Contestant number 1, Sam, our mouse trapping expert, caught a mouse with his trap tonight. As winter approaches, Sam adds a door to his shelter to prepare for the cold, right as the first snow falls, signaling the impending cold season. Contestant number 5, Larry, was especially happy today as his shelter was free from rodent noises last night. He first checked his traps around the shelter, catching a mouse in each of the first 2, providing enough calories for the day. Contestant number 10, Randy, spent his day making a chair in his shelter to pass the time and combat loneliness. Randy is skilled at hunting, building, and setting traps, but solitude is his biggest challenge. Hiking helps ease his mind, but the cold weather seems to have erased the fish, just like uncertainties in his life diminish his sense of security. Despite his strong survival skills, Randy's journey ends as loneliness overwhelms him again, leading to his withdrawal from the contest. Contestant number 6, Dave, set out on his hunting trip today. With the colder weather, fishing has become difficult, and the activity of rodents has decreased. Food is becoming increasingly scarce. Dave urgently needs to catch a large prey. Due to the distance between the hunting spot and the canyon and his shelter, he also needs to build a temporary shelter there today. Otherwise, the daily commute would drain his energy significantly. On day 35, with only 4 contestants left, contestant number 8, Britt, prepares for heavy snow by constructing a snowmobile. This slow-building transportation for snowy terrain will save a lot of energy later. The wood used must be debarked to make it smoother and reduce friction. Dave concluded today that the less body fat one has, the harder it is to fall asleep. As he loses weight, his sleep worsens. Even Dave the hunter has been struggling to find food recently. The cold weather causes many animals to hibernate, and river fish move to deeper waters. Finding food is becoming increasingly difficult. Today, Dave went to his hunting stand, hoping to encounter prey. However, sitting in the cold winter breeze on the tree can easily demoralize someone. After spending the entire afternoon without seeing any animals, it felt like a cold splash on his fervent heart. Dave returned to camp, boiled a pot of warm water, and went to the riverbank, admiring the beauty of the Mongolian wilderness while worrying about his health. He remembers being medically evacuated in Season 3 due to his health. Now, with the desolate Mongolian winter and prey vanishing overnight, it's hard for him to win without food. To avoid repeating past mistakes and worsening his health, Dave chose to withdraw from the competition. He is satisfied with his performance but does not want to risk another medical elimination. As the first contestant ever medically evacuated from the show, the psychological impact was significant. This proactive withdrawal is clearly better. Since food is becoming harder to find,